All right, guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of the CX Chronicles Podcast. Super excited for today's show, guys. We have an awesome guest. Celia Fleischaker, CMO at Verint, is joining the show. Celia, why don't you say hello to the CX Nation?
Sure. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
100%. So guys, I'm pumped for today's show. We have all these different types of customer-focused business leaders that are coming on, and they're talking about the ways that they really kind of build and lead and push through what we call the 4 CX pillars, right? Team, tools, process, and feedback. And Celia is going to be here today kind of sharing a different lens, right? As a chief marketing officer, Celia, I'm really excited to kind of hear, number one, just starting off the show as we start off all these episodes with your own background, but I'm definitely interested in hearing how a chief marketer thinks about the 4 pillars, because I think it's going to give a whole different type of lens to some of the stuff that we talk about every single week. So why don't you set the stage for us, Celia? Give us a sense for how you got into the position that you're at today, leading marketing at an awesome company like Verint.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be a Verint in this role, and a long time coming, right? I've been in a number of companies. I kind of grew up in my career at Epicor. It's an enterprise resource planning or ERP company. I spent 20 or so years there. It's fun. I joined there as part of a startup, and then just really worked through. By the time I became CMO, we were about $1 billion in revenue. So it's a nice long journey and just really exciting. Got to work in a lot of different areas, and marketing is part of that. Started the career in product marketing, worked in field and in corporate. And then I spent some time as CMO at a public company called Pros. They're a configure price quote, a CPQ vendor, and really had a great time there. And then just got the opportunity to come to Verint. And what I love about Verint is it's this cool combination where I get to do marketing for customer engagement. And I think customer engagement is such a crossover with marketing in general.
Absolutely.
What you do. And so it's a nice way to kind of get to focus on things I love about marketing.
That's super cool. So number one, you've had some pretty incredible experiences, and you're right. I'm glad that you just called this right out of the gate, Celia, which is like, for so many marketers, these folks are constantly thinking about not only the customer journey, but you're thinking about how do people become aware of a business or a product or a service? How do people even think about considering whether it's something they want to learn about? How do people even know that it exists in the first place, right? So it's like literally like some of the type of work that you have done in your career, it is literally starting off that customer journey, right? It's literally getting it started. So it's going to be fun to kind of hear some of the different things that you've kind of seen in your own career, for sure.
Once good.
So Celia, I'd love to just learn a little bit more about the actual team at Verint. Spend some time talking about not only your team specifically, but give us a sense for some of the different types of roles and some of the different types of teams and departments that are building the Verint team today.
Yeah, and I love this. My favorite part of the 4 pillars, right? The team. It's definitely the key ingredient there. And we've got a great one here. From a team perspective and the roles that we think about, you've got your corporate organization that's focused on communications and brand. You've got operations in there, which is such a cool field that's evolved over the last decade. Content, digital, which is, a really key channel for us. And then you've got our field organization that's really aligned with those regions, how we're going to build that pipeline out to support those sales objectives. And then we have what we call our go-to-market team, which is really, I like to describe it as product marketing on steroids. This is the group that's really leading the charge about where we're going to go with our solutions, how we're going to take them to market, and how we're going to be competitive.
I love it. I mean, so number one, you've got a nice full slate of different subject matter expertise areas, but also you guys have a big team at Verint, right, Celia? So you have folks, I imagine, spread all over the world. I know that there's almost 40 offices. What is the team, or what's the group that you're spending the most of your time with today? Which of some of the different departments or the facets are you really kind of leading the charge on the day-to-day with Verint?
Yeah, so it's kind of fun, and marketing's changed a lot. And we're spending a lot of time with the product group defining, because it's the product and how that's differentiated, how it competes in the market is so important. So we spend a lot of time with them, a lot of time with the sales organization. And I'd say one of the newer groups that we're spending a lot of time with is HR, because we spend a lot of time, especially recently, on our employer brand and how we're, driving a better experience for our own employees. And so there's a lot of partnership there with the HR team on that front.
But I love that. I think it's funny. Like, one of the things that I've been noticing more and more and more, Celia, some of the folks that are coming on the show, there is just such an effort or so much energy spent around thinking about product market fit, but also it's how are you going to build a best in class product or a best in class service that not only does a tremendous amount of good for whatever ICP you're teeing up for your business, right? All of us have different ideal customer profiles that we're going after, but we're living in a world where there's just so much constant distraction, and there's so many different pieces of information coming at us, and there's so many different shiny things that we can chase. You've got a hard job, right? I think what a lot of people don't realize is, for senior marketers at big companies, it's hard to think about a way that you can capture attention, find that product market fit, and then constantly be delivering a message to kind of get more folks to put it in the top of the funnel to keep having the conversation about Verint. So I just wanted to call that out, but I guess
there's a reason that the CMO is the shortest tenure in the C-suite.
I like that. Wait a minute. I like that you call this out, because that's what I'm getting at. This is a hard job, and stuff changes every single day. So how have you sort of managed? You've had several CMO roles. How have you sort of managed that, or what's been some of your playbook tricks to kind of think about the way that you can kind of remain focused or find your major objectives or key results that you're kind of focused on with your marketing team?
I think you balance the pressure with the passion, right? Like, I love it. Like, I've grown up in it. It's always what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. And I think the people that are in leadership roles, whether you're a director or a CMO, like whatever you're doing, if you're passionate about it, you deal with that pressure because you kind of thrive on it. You're right. It's constantly changing. You're trying to stay up with the evolving market, what your customers need, stay differentiated. And so I think you just, I think the people that are in marketing in general must are pretty passionate about it and like it. And it's one of those things that I think the reason I like it, it is constantly evolving and changing. And that to me is, I want to be in a field like that is different year to year. Yeah.
100%. And you're right. Things are changing so quickly in today's world and today's business climate that you're right. Staying ahead, staying in front of some of the things that are capturing people's attention, staying in front of some of the ways that some companies are doing a phenomenal job of telling stories or actually giving people an idea of why they need to be drawn in. That's fun. That's some of the fun part of like the creative side of business. And it must be a lot of fun for you and your team at Verint to really kind of be leading the charge in that every single day.
I know. And I'm seeing my team this week. I'm so excited. They're going to be in town in person. We're still working, in a hybrid fashion, and we're pretty decentralized. I think a lot of people became that way over the last couple of years. And I think to get in the room and still have that opportunity to debate and challenge about what we want to do next year is fun.
It's good. That's awesome. I told Celia when we were getting ready for today's show, I was like, call that out, because there's so many people that I talk to who are still living in the new norm of the remote world, right? And that's awesome. That's great. So many of us love this, and so many of us loves the flexibility that comes with it, or even just the ability to really truly have focus times where we can get our jobs done, deal with whatever we need to do with our customers. But man, I've had more and more conversations with folks that kind of called out what Celia just said, which is, I wish I had more time with my team, or I wish I had more in-person time with my customers. And guys, I think we're definitely getting to a place in a space in the world where that's becoming more of a normal feeling. So it's awesome that you guys finally get to some team time. And I'm sure that some of that collaborative energy plus just general fun of hanging out with other humans and not just being on like the boxes again and again and again. It's gonna be good for you guys, Celia.
Awesome.
So Celia, I'd love, before we move forward, as you know, every single week we're trying to get ideas from customer focused business leaders that are coming on the show about things that in their own journey they've really kind of taken with them and they've sort of added into their playbook. If there was like one or two things that you've picked up along your own journey when it comes to team building, it's because you've built a bunch of different marketing teams and you've worked at a bunch of different types of companies, some really big ones too. What would be like the one or two calls to action that you'd want our listeners to be thinking about for how you, as you built your team out at Verint, what were some things that you had to remain focused on, or what was like one or two key activities or key actions that really helped you build the type of team that you wanted to build and scale into the future as you helped to grow Verint?
I think one of the things that I've learned, and I've been so fortunate to have these amazing teams at each company that I've been with. And in some cases, it was a team I grew up with and spent 15 years with. And then I would go to pros or come to Verint, and all of a sudden you're with this new team and you recognize, you find great talent. Like, there is great talent in every organization. And typically to build that team, there's this great, I call it a blending. So you take the talent that's there and figure out what you need from that talent and then what you may need from the outside. But I think people never underestimate what's in place when you walk into an organization, and take the time to really understand the talent that exists, the challenge that you have ahead of you, and then matching that up. And it's usually a combination that you need some talent from the outside, and then you can blend it with the talent you have already existing at that organization. But I've just been amazed. Like, I'll be at a company and be like, this is the best team ever. And then you go to the next company, like, man, these people are great too. And you find the right mix of talent at each organization. And it's typically not going to be what you had before. And it works out really well.
I love that. I think number one, you're spot on, where just the ability to create an environment where incredible employees and incredible folks in your staff are able to learn from each other, teach each other, rub off some of the good and the bad, and sometimes even stuff that needs to be improved upon. But you nailed it. It's really, really important to find a place where you can build that type of environment. I think the other thing too is this: with all of the stuff that's going on in the world right now, right? We've all read every single article about the Great Resignation. We've all saw all of these different bits of information around people moving from one employer to the next. But there's going to be a huge focus from tomorrow's leading companies on employee experience and employee engagement. And the part that you just said there, Celia, that I am so much aligned with, is like, people are going to want to work with other awesome, smart A players. That's what's going to want to happen. And companies that can foster that type of a space, or that type of a culture, or almost demand it, they're going to kill it. They're going to go way above and way beyond, and they're really going to find it as a unique competitive advantage to scale into the future with.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, you want to, that raises your game, right? The more talent you're working alongside, the better you become as a person. And that, how you measure that talent, I think, is important, because it's definitely ability to do the work, but how they get the job done and how fun. I spend a lot of time at work, you do too, right? I want to work with a team that likes what they do and they like each other.
Yep, 100% agree. Couldn't agree anymore. Celia, I'd love to dive into the second CX pillar of tools. And I know we could go on and on and on about this, because this is a big part of what Verint does. And you guys have built some incredible products and some incredible solutions. But I'd love for you to spend a couple minutes talking about tools. And let's break this up into two camps. Number one, because I do want you to talk about some of the things that you and your team are building at Verint, and some of the tools that you guys are really kind of putting into the hands of your customers. And then I definitely want to save a couple minutes at the end I'd love to hear some of the tools that your team has been leveraging to build your operation, to build your department, and just to build all of the capabilities that you have. Spend a few minutes talking about tools.
Yeah. So, I mean, from a tools perspective, it's neat. Like, we are in that unique situation where some of what we deliver as a company to our customers is also what we use to help drive marketing and customer experience. And so we've got, the full stack that we're working on. And really our focus over the last year has been looking at that stack and understanding what it's delivering for us. So we put a ton of work into analytics and seeing what's performing, how it's performing, what we need to shift and make changes to drive a better impact, whether it's with the pipeline or it could be with customer experience as a whole. And technology is really the key driver for us there. I mean, is everyone's being asked to do more and be more effective with the same number of resources, and so we're finding that the technology is the key to making that happen, and making sure we're running the right programs, the right initiatives, and it's been fun to focus in on visibility that we have to what we're doing, and being a lot more transparent about how things are performing, giving people access to that across marketing, but in other areas too, and then driving improvement.
I mean, the piece that you mentioned about visibility and transparency, it almost feels like one of the things that COVID did for so many entrepreneurs and so many business leaders and so many executive teams is it almost forced that, Celia, right? It almost like forced the need for increasing visibility and making sure that everyone, both I think customers and employees, had like a view on stuff. They had like visibility, and they sort of had a sense for what, not only what the overall mission is, but like what's the general direction where different companies are really kind of moving. And I think we live in an interesting world now where customers they want to have some form of a purpose to what type of companies they're supporting, and then they want to know that there's sort of some alignment with some of the brands and the logos and the businesses that they do business with. And I think that you're right, where technology and tools is the easiest place to give us some of that. Before we jump off this, I want to get in. You guys have some super cool products that you guys are building. So there's forecasting and scheduling, there's real-time work, there's engagement orchestration, experience management. There's a laundry list. I'd love for you to spend a few minutes just talking about some of the major tools that the Verint team is really seeing its customers engage the most with.
Yeah, so I'll talk at a high level about what we do, and then I'll talk specifically at the marketing end of it for your audience too, and customer experience. But in general, Verint, if you think about a company and how you engage with your customers, so how do I might talk with them through a contact center. I might have an IVA or a chatbot on my website. I've got messaging channels that they might be going through. All of those levels of engagement, all those different channels, Verint is working those. So we're behind that whole workforce that might be in that contact center, helping them do that job efficiently. We're delivering them the knowledge and helping them interact, coaching that agent as they talk with you on the call about why you're trying to return this pair of pants that didn't work out.
Wait, that happens? I was gonna say, Celia, a lot of the listeners listening to this show, they've got all sorts of fun conversations like that every single solitary day that they're driving.
It gives me such a new perspective when I call into a company and I'm talking to them and I'm like, I know what tools you have available. You could help me here. But digital channels, you've seen them skyrocket. So like customers like a GNC who saw all their traffic shift out of stores into these digital channels, and how they managed that flow and improved it throughout the pandemic. That if we're engaging with a customer, that's where Verint can help you. And it's not just on the actual engagement, it's on measuring that engagement. So what is the customer experience? Did they think it was good? How did they feel about it? We do that measurement and feedback as well.
That's awesome. And that's and this is hard. This is one of the hardest parts, Celia, too, with the business is growing, is having some type of technology or having some type of solution that allows for that, for not only just that comprehension and the visibility that we talked about, but just tracking the stuff, or having somebody that's measuring it or managing it so that you can actually go back and draw from it in the future.
And I think it's a business of any size. If you're a startup, if you're multiple millions, a public, whatever you are, this is an area where there's so much richness and figuring out how you get that feedback. And there are so many ways to do it today, whether it's a simple survey or it could be an automated solution. It could be listening and using analytics. It just depends on what's right for your business. But the amount that gives you back in terms of where you can improve and how you're doing, product direction as you're trying, there's so much richness in that data.
I couldn't agree more. And it's funny when you think about smaller emerging companies that are just starting to find their niche, they're just starting to find their product market fit, they're just starting to maybe get their first swath of customers. Some of that detail that you just talked about, that is literally where you're going to be able to find areas that are ripe for innovation, ripe for optimization. Maybe you start to hear, this is where you start to get some of your first sets of feedback around the things that customers love or the things that customers hate, or even just things that our customers are like, hey, when are you guys going to build this? Or when are you going to start to offer that? Those are
Right.
the types of pieces of information that, like, this is why CX and CS, or customer experience, customer success, even marketing experience, this is why this stuff is so related to modern selling, right, Celia? This is exactly why it helps fan the flames of growth and of innovation and of really growing the business and the bottom line.
And it's where you start developing those advocates, right? From a brand perspective, more and more today, the advocacy that what your customers think is intertwined with your brand. So not only are you getting that feedback to know where I need to improve or where I need to maybe mature my product, you also might uncover people that are really happy or really like what you're doing, and you start building those advocates, and that's gold, right?
I I say it all the time. It's the power of the promoters, and once you start to get into the world of having like an army of promoters that are going out and telling not only the rest of the market or the rest of your potential ICPs who are probably right for whatever your product or your service is, but like nobody's gonna push back when you have 1,000 people that are giving you 5-star reviews or talking about how fantastic your business is or your product line is or your solutions are or your service team, right? And so it's like that's one of the biggest ways that you really can try to leverage CX and CS to help fuel growth, right?
When you said reviews, and I love that, and we focused a lot on reviews. So it's not just about the feedback that they're giving you directly and privately, but there's a lot of interesting information that comes through public review sites that are available today, and it's such a great source of creating awareness and getting your brand a little more known, whether it's through your trust radius or G2. There are lots of
Absolutely.
opportunities out there.
I see. I'm so glad that you brought this up because, like, you're right. Even if you just take a hand, like, and then the other way is you can slice and dice this. If you're a SaaS executive team, right, thinking
Yeah.
about leveraging G2, Capterra, Gartner, putting in color and sentiment and details and examples of things that people that are already your customers love about you, that's easy. And then, guys, for some of our listeners that maybe you're not in the SaaS space, maybe you're building a product or you're building some type of specific service. When people can go through your Google reviews or
Yeah.
some of your like industry-based reviews and literally see what existing customers who've already spent money and have already worked with you are saying, it's literally fuel for growth. And there's so many
Right.
companies, Celia, that don't, it's almost like they don't take time to try to curate more of that from their existing customers. And it's funny, customers are always typically, they're weighed down to help with this. They want to give feedback. They'd love to do a video or do like some type of a short clip where you call out how they're leveraging your product and service. So such an awesome CTA right there.
There you go. Yeah.
See that I'd love to move forward into so all of these ideas, awesome ideas here, and great nuggets of wisdom here. I'd love to dive into the third CX pillar of process. And this is an interesting one because I think I know every business leader's got a slightly different way of kind of bringing their playbook into their given business or into their given team. But I'd love to kind of hear you talk about how the Verint team and how your team at Verint has really kind of managed process as the business has grown, as the team has evolved, whether it's ways that you guys kind of develop your living playbooks or ways that you continue to expand and adapt your knowledge base or maybe your FAQs. But I'd love to hear you spend a few minutes talking about how you guys sort of manage process inside of the Verint team.
Yeah. Processes. So, I'm a process person, and I think process is so important. And I think for growth companies, as you grow, it can get out of hand without that baseline process in place. And it's such a great place if people start early with process. It's so much easier down the road.
I agree entirely.
We're not perfect, right? We've got a lot of great processes in place. We use Reich to drive a lot of the big projects that we have. And it's back to that visibility and transparency, the right tool. And there are a number of tools out there like that can help you drive alignment and give people an understanding of what's happening, and whether it's a simple piece of content that's getting developed, but it ends up touching 5 different groups before it's done, to we're already have the project management going on our user conference. It's next June, right? Like, so it's, I think having tools that'll enable you to create baseline and foundational processes, but then just manage those bigger projects as you go along. Because with marketing, nothing is typically like an overnight thing, a task, one and done. It's so interconnected to the rest of either other parts of marketing or to the rest of the business. And so you have to have those processes locked. And you think about a product launch is probably just a great example of where it's so key, knowing what makes up a launch, how important a launch is, all the different facets of what goes into a successful product launch is where I think.
Yep. Go ahead. Keep going, Celia.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else you want to cover here, but I definitely think, product launch, content development, campaigns, and certainly, I mean, we run the team here. They have it's defined globally what we're doing, how we're going about it. And that, campaign plan is just locked down to that each individual task, but it's great. And you have to allow for flexibility, but getting that process defined is so important. And it's just, there's always more to do, but you can start somewhere, right? Choose the area that you want to define that process for, something that you're repeating over and over, and then get that template ready to go.
I love that. I think what you make me think about with that, Celia, too, is like if you're a large company like Verint, you have thousands of people. You're probably going to have multiple different types of cuts and multiple different types of sections or overview areas where a large business just needs to understand how other teams or other departments or other players, how do they even think about the world that's directly in front of them? That's number one. So just like chronicling or documenting or just being able to curate a bunch of content about all the things that are going on in our business, that's a huge value add right there, right? Number one.
Right.
Number two is so many of us, right? I think it's like a natural human need or a natural human response. People like to have information that they can refer to about a certain area of the business, or maybe to your point, it's a new product feature, or especially once you start getting into like product use cases, people like having lists, checklists. They like having things that they can refer back to. Not just sales assets, sales, marketing assets, operative assets, where they can literally go in and look at PDFs, living playbooks that show you like all of the different people. Like, again, it comes from this world of like, we have so much stuff getting thrown at us this day and age, that anything that we can like have access to that just helps to make a simple story. Let me reread the top things that I need to know. And then again, I think going back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier in the episode, like that is also tribal knowledge sharing right there. It's the easiest way that you can get people across your business to understand the different facets of what's going on. And then customers, I'm thinking about, not that we could go on and on about all the internal benefits of this, but customers need the same thing, guys, right? So like if you're building a technology company or a SaaS company, or if you have some specific type of products that you're selling, customers like being informed and they like being educated, and they like, before they make a buying decision and they pony up the buck, they want to learn about something before they buy into it. And I think that, what's so interesting about process is like, every company, Celia, to your point, they're going to capture process differently. They're going to capture the way that you structure it, right? Some people like putting this stuff into big, expansive knowledge bases. That's great. Some people like almost making it part of their storytelling. Maybe it's the way that they kind of leverage their email marketing schemes and the way that they tell stories. They'll show some of the cool stuff that they're working on, or new products or new services or new features. But this is important, guys. Again, I think every company and every business, to your point, Celia, you could start simple. It could be like a 1-page type of checklist around the different things to know for this month, or it could be, a 50-page PDF infographic document that you share with all of your customers that gives them all the answers they need. But this process idea is really something that I always like, kind of hearing how different people sort of think about it, and maybe even how they have to sort of, as the business evolves, how do they constantly change and evolve the way that they're messaging some of the different process changes that are coming down the pipe, right? Internally and externally.
I like that, because it's totally a spectrum, right? For where you are in the journey as an organization, what you need. And if, like you said, if it's a checklist all the way up to maybe you need a full community and knowledge base in front of your employees or your customers, that's possible too, but it's matching it up and then evolving it as you grow.
And I'm glad you brought the community part up. This is going to be something something that I think so Celia, for our listeners, a lot of folks are, they're maybe in the beginning part of building out a community, or they're in the very beginning part of thinking about, okay, wait a minute, now we've got our first couple hundred or our first 1,000 users or customers. How can we leverage these people to answer some of the common questions, or to share some of the common interest points, so that we can get like a whole community of people talking about it? Is there some ideas that you have around some of the work that you and the team have done at Verint around this piece that you'd like to dive into?
I won't tell a lot, but we do have an awesome community solution. So
I love it. Good. Talk about it.
So we use it in two ways. We use it internally with our employees to share and create the knowledge across the different employee pieces that we have. But then we have a customer and a partner community that we use it, where you've got your knowledge base, you've got the information you're sharing, you've got your support plugged in there. But it is people that build communities well. It is a way to harness the power of your customers in a good way, and start having them peer-to-peer communication, right? It's not all about vendor to customer. How do those communities of customers work together to drive ideas and information sharing and solving each other's challenges is pretty cool, because your customers already have a lot in common. And so that community, I think, is always a really powerful aspect of how you can not only work directly with customers, but enable them to work together.
I agree. It's almost like this community has become this extra layer, or this extra piece of value added for a given business, right? If you can somehow, not only do you have this great product, this great service, you have this great support team, you've got all of these different folks that are thinking about how they can help your business every day, plus you add a community on the top of it, people love that stuff. And then and I think you're right, Celia, where it's like, there's something about almost like the democratization of feedback, or the democratization of information. People love that stuff. People want to go, if they can go and they see in the community, there's 100 other people talking about, how feature XYZ is fantastic. You're not hearing that necessarily from a vendor's sales rep, or from a vendor customer success rep, you're hearing it from other people that are using it. And honestly, some of the best communities, they give people ideas for what they can kind of bring back into their own day-to-day that might make things better for their own business. And I think it's going to be interesting to see the future of communities too, because I think communities, the bar keeps getting pushed up. So there's some companies out there that are doing incredible things with their video and community, or with the forum-based communication. And that stuff's gold, Celia. That's going to be like a whole other tranche of interesting data and feedback for people to kind of crack into and make sense of how they can, come up with the next quarter's OKRs or next quarter's goals based on what the community is saying.
I think so. I always look at it like when you would go to this great conference and you come back with a million things that you want to implement or do. Your community should work that way, right? Like you should feel that way when you leave the community. You should be able to get in there, have those rich conversations, and be able to bring it back. It should give back a lot.
100%. Absolutely. So I'd love to dive into the fourth CX pillar of feedback. And I say this all the time on the show, guys, but this is one I love hearing how different people answer this. But so I want to hear two different parts. We'll break this question up, but I'd love to kind of get some ideas and some stories from you around how you and your team have managed customer feedback at Verint. Sure. And then I'd love to hear you talk about some of the ways that you've been able to leverage your employee feedback, especially with the big business. Spend a few minutes talking about feedback.
Yeah. So we're thinking about customer feedback, and we do employee surveys where we're getting that feedback. We're looking at how they feel about their interactions with us and the relationship with us, how easy it is to do business. And then we've created this kind of matrix team from across the business we call them CX Catalysts.
Love it. And nice.
Yeah, they come from every area, and they come together and they get this feedback that we've collected from customers. And then they go back, because some is about support, some is about the product, some is about sales, some is about legal.
Yeah.
They take those responses back and we follow up, right? We understand what they are, and the relevant feedback goes into these groups, and they're following up with those customers so that because that's the worst, right? You fill out that survey and nothing happens.
Wait, does that happen in the CX world a lot? Because I feel like it's something that, like, you think in 2022, Celia, we would finally be like over asking for it if we're not going to at least like thank somebody for it, or at least tell them that we're working on it. But like,
Just
you
an
still see this
automated
all the time.
email, right?
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, but that we like that, and so we're using that a lot. And then I'd say on the employee side, we're using feedback as well. We've done. I can't believe we did this. We did a pretty major employee survey during the pandemic because we really wanted to hear so much change, right, and how people are feeling, and the amount of change that has been driven off that one survey in terms of how we work, how we approach the workplace, what we're doing with communications. It's just, it's been really cool to see, because you always want to, you giving feedback. I had a boss who feedback is a gift. I didn't always feel that way during the review cycle.
It is. Yeah. No, I like that. It is. It's true.
Given in the right way, it's constructive feedback is really good, and that goes for the customers as they give it, employees who give it back, and then just using that information to drive improvement is so critical.
It's so critical. And then again, I think it's like we're in this super interesting time where and guys, it can be so simple, but taking like the drumbeat or the pulse of your voice of customer and lining it right up to the drumbeat or the pulse of your voice of employee, it's just such an easy way to see which areas are probably most ripe for optimization, innovation. And then obviously, like, people don't tell you that some of these orders of change or some of these potential focus areas that are ripe for improvement if they don't mean it, right? So like it's coming from somewhere. Yeah. And I think the other thing too is just like, it's incredible how many companies, Celia, still miss the opportunity of taking maybe the top 5 things or the top 10 things that your customers saying about your product and your service and your pricing and all the different things that they might give feedback on, and then bringing it straight to the guys and gals that have to talk to those customers and work with those customers every day. And you can very quickly slim a list of 10 things, maybe down to the 2 or 3 things that could give you your biggest bang for your buck or your highest return on investment. And then more importantly, you're literally making the lives easier for your customers and your employees at the exact same time. And that just feels like a win-win for everybody.
They're so interconnected, employee and customer experience. And right. You fix it for one, and how much better the life gets of that agent or the person on the other end. It's so important.
It's absolutely truth. Celia, this has been fantastic. Before we let you go, I would love to give you a minute to talk about what are some of the awesome things that you want the CX Nation to know about for the things that you and your team are working on at Verint, any upcoming events or any cool new products or service optionalities that you want to talk about. And then lastly, where can people find out more about you, and where can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about all the great things you guys are doing at Verint?
All right. A lot there. So mid-November, there is a virtual event that we're doing, all things CX, and talking about the platform and what's going on in customer engagement in general, some of the trends, and people can hear from our product experts and leaders about that. So that's available on our website. And I'd recommend that to anybody. It's just a good way to get in there and learn more about what's happening with customer engagement. And then for me personally, LinkedIn is my channel that they spend a lot of time on, and learning from other people and reading about what's happening. So you absolutely connect with me that way.
I love it. Well, Celia, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the CX Chronicles podcast and share your story and share all the incredible things you and the team at Verint are working on. It's been our absolute pleasure, and we will look forward to chatting with you again in the future.
Thanks, Adrian. Appreciate it.